the alarm clock rang. I look at my phone and oh my goodness, I'm going to be late for work. I jump out of bed, rush to the bathroom, and wait, what am I doing? I do not need to go to work today because a month ago, I just tendered my resignation and I'm now officially unemployed. At that point, fear momentarily gripped me. I was thinking to myself, what have I done? Why did I give up my good job at the bank? Why did I decide to quit my job to become an entrepreneur? Everybody asked me not to do so. And since I do not have a job, this means that I'm not going to get a paycheck at the end of this month, which means, how am I going to pay my bills? I stood there thinking to myself, have I just made the biggest mistake of my life? Hi everybody, my name is Violet and I come from a middle-income family from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. My parents, Fabian and Christine, they are small business owners. My dad is a used car dealer and my mom is a tailor. And from young, they have rooted in me 3 very important values: hard work, perseverance, and resilience. And as an only child who is growing up in an Asian family, education is very important. So from a young age, they have already decided that they will send me to one of the top schools in the city. However, at the very last minute, my mom decided that she's not going to send me to an English school, but she's going to send me to a Chinese school instead. And this school is famous for its rigorous curriculum. So what happens every day is from 7 to 12, I'll be studying the Malaysian education curriculum. And from 1 to 5, I'll be studying the Singapore education curriculum. And on some days, I even have to take tuition after school to catch up with what I was learning. And for some subjects like math and science, I would actually be doing it in 2 different languages, Chinese and English. Looking back, I'm not sure how I survived that system. But having been through such a grueling and punishing routine at primary education, it instilled in me the importance of dedication and resilience, which came very helpful later in life. When I was 11 years old, my parents decided to send me and my cousin to visit our aunt in Toronto. However, those plans fell apart. So my parents said to me, Violet, do you still want to go on your own? Alarm bells start to ring. I was thinking, I'm only 11 years old. What if I get lost? What if I get kidnapped? What if I hated it there? What if I get homesick? I've never been away from home for such a long time. But at the same time, a really excited voice in my head started saying, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. What are you waiting for? Say yes. So luckily for me, I listened to this voice and I agreed to go. So that was my journey, 24 hours almost, flying from KL all the way to Toronto with a 6 hours stopover at Heathrow Airport. When I finally got there, all my fears were unfounded. I had such a great time and I was feeling the first taste of independence and freedom, and I came out of that trip brimming with confidence, knowing that I'm able to survive on my own, being thousands of miles away from my parents and my family, and that was just the beginning of my lifelong love for travel and exploring the world. So at the end of my secondary school year, a lot of my closest friends were going to study abroad to do their boarding school in the UK. And me, having been bitten by the travel bug and wanting to explore the world, I really wanted to do it as well. But fear gripped me again, and doubt started to come into my head. I thought to myself, we are not that well off. Will my parents be able to afford to send me to boarding school? And what if I hated it there? What if I have no friends? All of these doubts keep swirling in my head. But that didn't stop me when I saw a newspaper advertisement advertising for scholarships for A-levels. So I applied, and thankfully I aced the interviews and I got a scholarship. This exercise reminded me the importance of self-advocacy and doing what it takes and just taking things in my own hands and owning my destiny. And for the next 1.5 years, I was living the dream of studying in a boarding school and making some of the best friends of my life. 1 year and 4 months after I started my job in a bank, I made one of the biggest life-changing decisions. I decided to quit my job and be an entrepreneur, or in my case, a professional matchmaker. I remember making a trip back to Kuala Lumpur to tell my parents this decision. I sat them down and I told them, Dad, Mom, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to be a matchmaker. Their jaws virtually dropped. Until today, I can still remember the look of despair, of shock, of disappointment and concern written all over their faces. They did their best to dissuade me. They told me that the practical thing to do is to continue working in the bank and do matchmaking as a side hustle. And their fears start to rub off me as well. And I started thinking, yeah, they're right. What if I lose all my life savings in this business? Why would anybody want to pay for matchmaking? Matchmaking is so old-fashioned. Why would anybody want to work with a matchmaker? And I'm only 24 years old. Why would they even part with their hard-earned money to someone who has never done this before? But yet at the same time, I knew deep down that this is going to work. I just knew it in my gut that I had what it takes to make this happen. So I did my best to convince my parents. And finally, just like how they have always encouraged, nurtured, and supported their only daughter in her self-advocacy, in her self-direction, in her taking things in her own hands, they decided to give me their blessings, and since then, they have been my greatest support. Well, being an entrepreneur at the age of 24 is no walk in the park. In fact, there are many days that I wake up in dread, thinking that, what if I fail? And worse, I was so worried of disappointing my parents, of making them lose face in front of their friends and relatives. Thankfully, the first few years of our business went relatively well and we survived. 7 years after we first started the business, we decided to expand to Taiwan. By then, we have expanded from Singapore to Malaysia to Hong Kong, and we were flying high and we think we were so successful. But we were actually being overconfident and complacent. We didn't realize that the culture in Taiwan is very different. The dating norms in Taiwan is completely different from Singapore, Malaysia, or even Hong Kong. And there were already so many big players in the market, and they were just out-marketing us. 1 year into the business, we were losing so much money, and we are clearly not making any headway. So once again, I needed to make a very, very difficult decision. I need to decide right now, do I continue to just do this business, knowing that it's not making money, and because all the other branches are doing well, it can cover up the losses for Taiwan, or should I cut the losses and move on? I keep moving back and forth these two decisions. And finally, I decided to seek the advice of our experienced board of directors. After convening with them, I made the hard decision of cutting our losses and leaving Taiwan. That was one of the hardest decisions that I ever had to make in my life, because I have to admit that I've made a mistake. I have to admit that I failed. And until today, even when I think of that decision, I still cringe, I still shudder in shame. That was our biggest business failure. Anybody remember what happened in 2020? Yes, the COVID pandemic. The COVID pandemic paralyzed many businesses worldwide. And when it happened, I was paralyzed with fear because our business is a storefront, face-to-face business where we meet our clients in person and we arrange dates for our clients to meet in restaurants and cafes. And with the pandemic, with the lockdown, what does this mean? This means that we might actually lose our business. The business that my husband and I have painstakingly built for so many years. I couldn't sleep. I knew that this is a pandemic, there's nothing I can do about it, but yet I knew I cannot just sit still and do nothing. So I decided to meet with my management team. And after that, I told them that we need to cut costs immediately. That was a very difficult decision. So we brought together everybody in an emergency town hall, and I told everybody straight. We have always practiced an open book management, so they know how the numbers are. And I told them, if we were to tide and survive through this pandemic, we need to cut costs. We need to cut our pay by working less hours and less days. I was ready to face the wrath and anger of my team members. But I was so touched, and I was so relieved, and I was so thankful that they all rallied behind me, supported me and the company. And in fact, some of them even said that they were willing to take less days off so that some people who needed the money can do so. In my 20 years of entrepreneurship journey, there have been many ups and downs, trials and tribulations, blood, sweat, and tears. Were there times where I just wanted to throw in the towel and call it a day? Yes. Were there times where I just want to curl up into a ball and just pretend the world didn't exist? Yes. Were there days that I was just thinking to myself, why did I quit my banking and legal career? Yes. But at all of these moments, when I have to make, at a juncture, I always have to make a difficult decision. And the challenge is, how do you know that you are making the right decision? So after making so many difficult decisions, these are the 3 lessons that I've learned. First, beware of analysis paralysis. Just take action and conquer the fear. A lot of us are guilty of just getting more and more and more information to justify our decision. We think that clarity will help us. The truth is, by gathering more and more information, often it paralyzes us and stops us from making any decisions at all. For example, at 24 years old, when I decided to quit my job, knowing nothing much about matchmaking, and decided to just go for it. Did I know it was the right decision? Probably not. But what I knew was that a lot of my colleagues were single and not dating, and there were not many avenues then for them to meet new people. And I saw that lunch dating was something that has been very popular in the UK, US, Australia, but nobody was doing anything like that in Singapore or even Asia. So I saw a problem, I found a solution, and I've always been the anagony or relationship expert of my friends. So I thought it was something that I could do, so I took a leap of faith, and I did it. Number 2, be thick-skinned and ask for help and advice. One of the earliest memories that I have of my dad is that he's an extrovert, and every time we go to a new restaurant or a new cafe, he would bump into someone that he knows. This memory reminded me how important it is to network, build connections, and nurture friendships. So that was what I did exactly. And whenever I needed to make any of these difficult decisions, it was never just me. I could always tap on the ensemble of leaders, entrepreneurs, mentors that have kind of been like my Avengers team, where I can get support and advice from. What I've realized is a lot of people have walked down the path that we are going down, and they have made the mistake and they know what to do next. Rather than us doing trial and error, why not get their help and advice? And that has helped me to make my decisions with more conviction and confidence. And number 3, trust your gut instinct. Gut instinct is not just a feeling. It is actually a combination of our roots, our values, our upbringing, and our experiences. My dad is a maverick. He's a high school dropout, and he actually went down a different path from most people and started his own used car dealership. He always tells me, Violet, do not be a follower, be a leader. Trusting your gut instinct requires courage. The courage to stand by what you believe in, even when the entire world tells you that you're crazy and it's not going to work. So when I first started the business, the truth is, friends, family, strangers, all thought that I lost my mind. They all told me to not quit my job and not be a matchmaker. And in fact, one of my well-meaning colleagues in HR actually told me, Violet, if this doesn't work out, come to me and I'll find you a job. Thankfully, 20 years down the road, I've never needed to take out that offer. What I've learned is, every decision that I've made, even though the bad ones, are not the end. It's actually new beginnings. There's actually a happy ending to our Taiwan expansion story. So what happened is, 11 years after our first foray into Taiwan, we actually went in again, and thankfully, we are now growing from strength to strength, learning from our past mistakes and also learning from our experiences. So as I look down all the experiences that I have in my entrepreneurship journey, which is fraught with questions, doubts, and fears, as I look at every single decision that I've made, I realize that even the steps that have been taken in uncertainty have been roots and foundations to who I am today. And every single opportunity is a branch to new beginnings. So let me leave you with this thought. What decision would you make if you knew for sure, if you're 100% certain that you cannot fail? What is stopping you? What is holding you back? Fear of failure limits us. It stops us from walking out of our comfort zone. But not taking action is actually a decision as well. Because by not taking action, you are stopping yourself from having the opportunity to decide your own path and to create your own destiny. So let's stop procrastinating. Let's take action. Let's own it. Let's learn from it and understand that each and every action that we take is going to have the potential to change our life, just like how mine has been changed. And as we look at all future life-changing decisions, let us dive deep into our roots to look at the lessons from our parents, the values that ground us, the experiences that shape us. Let us be like a tree, stand resilient, with our roots deep in conviction, and with our branches open to opportunities. Let us choose wisely, decide firmly and with courage, and let us grow in the sunlight of endless possibilities. Thank you.